Hey guys, just wanted to make a video about completing the 3 Peaks challenge. I had so many thoughts during the day, and I just wanted to share them and share some tips and some pointers for having a successful 3 Peaks campaign. So I just completed the 2016 Peaks Challenge Falls Creek event, 235 Ks, about 4,000 meters of elevation, and it's a very tough day at the office. I was in the saddle for just on 12 hours. I completed in 12 hours, 12 minutes, and I weighed about 90 kilos on the day, and my bike was about 10 kilos with all its spares and water bottles and etc. On there. So it was I guess I saw a lot of people suffering out there, and I think about 10% of the people failed to complete within the time limit. And I think if a guy like me can complete it, I think anyone can with some with the right preparation. So I guess point number 1, you need to train. So I use Trainer Road as my system to have the structured training each week, and how I used that was I did my intervals, high intensity interval training during the week, and then on the weekends I would try and get out and do a long ride. So I would substitute a Trainer Road ride, and then go out, ride out in the Dandenongs, ride out, do some of the 7 Peaks events and activities, and just get out there and get some long rides and long days in the saddle. I also went to the Tour Down Under 2016 and used that week as basically a training camp to get a massive dose of training stress. Had a couple of back-to-back 160k days through the Adelaide Hills, and yeah, it was a fantastic way to build that fitness. And you can tell, well, I can tell when I'm fit because my pulse starts going down when I wake up. So I take my resting heart rate, and currently I think my pulse is sitting about 47 at the moment when I wake up. So it's pretty low. And only a couple of years ago my pulse was about 80 to 90. So really unfit, out of shape. But anyway, I think the key point is you need to raise your FTP, so the point at which your body can't process the lactic acid anymore, your lactate, your functional threshold power. And I started my training block in October using Around the Bay 250 as the sort of start point of my training campaign. So I guess the second thing is look at the map and try and get out there and ride some of the route. Don't underestimate the time from Toowoomba Gap to Harriettville, and then of course Hotham, and don't underestimate the riding between Dinner Plain and Omeo, because it's really hilly. I think mentally after lunch it was just going to be a cheeky spin down to Omeo on the back of falls, and everything was going to be okay. But there was a lot of smaller but tough climbs in there, so you need to factor that in, and don't be surprised when it hits you. So the third point is food. I packed so much food, and in reflection I would have never had a chance. My wife is laughing at me at the moment. And I packed so much food into those valet bags, and I was just lucky that I had a return valet bag big enough to ship all the Clif bars back home so they didn't go to waste. So on my training rides I was eating a lot of Clif bars, but what happened was on the day you were just trying to, I got to my 3rd or 4th Clif bar and it was like chewing bark, and I just couldn't get the calories in via the Clif bars. And in the end, I was really lucky because I packed 3 freezer bags of Medu dates, and yeah, about a third of the way in after Toowoomba Gap, I transitioned over to a date strategy. So I was eating mostly dates along the ride. So I had a few bananas that I picked up along the way, and I mean, what else do I want to say? I saved my gels for the last 100 Ks. So when I started feeling a bit depleted, I'd have a gel. And on the last climb, which was, you know, the what the fuck corner, WTF corner, every time I had to walk the bike, I smashed a gel in and had some water and made sure I got the fluids in. So the only other thing I want to talk about food is, yeah, so anyway, next year, 2017, if I do all the next Peaks Challenge event, definitely gonna just go with dates right from the start, and probably have 1 or 2 Clif bars only, versus I packed about, you know, 10 or 12 Clif bars, so a bit silly. The other thing was I did pack some salt and vinegar rice cakes because I thought, oh, it'd be nice to have something acidic and salty. That was once again like chewing chalk, so not recommended. It didn't really work for me, and I ended up throwing it all out. So the next point, hydration. Point number 4. I was pissing a lot. I was pissing clear all day, which was, I think, an achievement in itself. When I got to an aid station, I would drink a bottle of water there while I was filling my bottle. So I'd have 2 empty bottles. I'd drink a full bottle of just plain water as I topped up the other 2 water bottles. I stayed on hydrolyte all day. So I had orange hydrolyte at the start of the day. I brought my own because you don't want to mix, you know, they had hydrolyte on the day, but it's just easier to have your own stuff, and then that way you can make sure that you know, they may not have the same brands that you've been training with. So I think that's important that you train with the same, you know, you ride on the day with the same, you know, food, the same gels, and the same, you know, what are they called? Isotonic drinks. So I started on the orange hydrolyte. And then later on in the day, I switched to grape. So I had 2 flavors. I think mentally it just helps you, you know, get it down. So I used 2 or 3 tablets of hydrolyte every time I had a bottle on the bike. So, you know, keeping the salts in, getting the salt in, and it just makes, I think it makes your day a lot easier. So the next thing is pacing. So you've been training hard, you've done your trainer road testing, you've got your functional threshold power. Try and ride between 70% of that when you can. So obviously when you're going up Hotham, or when you're going up the big climbs, like for example the back of Falls on the WTF corner, you can't keep it within 80%, because for a guy my weight, I was spiking at 300 to 350 watts, and that was after 200 Ks in the legs, and you know, you're just in the red zone and you can't help it. But obviously once you spike up, you can hopefully reach a flatter section, and you can recover at your 70-80%, and as lactate clears out. So yeah, find your threshold, ride at 70 to 80%. Don't tempt yourself to gas it on the flat bits, especially after Toowoomba. Riding into Harriettville, we were very lucky. We got a group that we rolled a few turns across, and but you know, that was probably the only time that we rode in a group to save energy, because once you hit the inclines, you know, the groups just blow apart. So I think, yeah, pace yourself, try to ride 70 to 80% when you can. Don't freak out when you have to spike, because you're inevitably going to have to get over some of the really steep bits. But when you're not, you can save your legs by using high cadence. Ride at a high cadence, 70 to 80%. Don't be tempted to go fast. The other thing, so the next tip is change of clothes. I think this was something we underestimated. I just did it in the last minute, put a change of clothes into the lunch valet bag. I just put a top and some fresh bibs. So in the end, I didn't use the bibs, I didn't use the top, but I did use the top. So I basically had a change of clothes, which made it a lot more comfortable. I think for next year, I'm going to pack a change of gloves. And I also had socks as well this year, and having fresh socks, look, it didn't really make too much difference, I think, but it did feel nice to have fresh socks for a few minutes afterwards. So fresh socks, fresh gloves though, will make a big difference. My gloves were blackened with gel and sugar and, you know, road grime, so I think it is probably not a bad idea to have fresh gloves. And obviously at that point, you know, you can dump all your wet weather gear, you know, because you've got a better readout of the weather. And I got rid of some of the arm warmers and that sort of stuff. Now the last the next point I guess I wanted to talk about was there were a lot of people getting punctures, and I guess there were a lot of people, it just seemed like their bikes weren't ready to go. So the night before at the Falls Creek Village, the guys that were there, the bike mechanics that were there, they were flat out. They had racks and racks of bikes on the racks to work on. There were people getting their gears tuned up. There were people getting tyres changed, and I think it's just a little bit unnecessary. I think if you're going to be properly prepared and not lose any time to mechanicals, you need to have your bike dialed in weeks, if not months. I think months you should have your configuration set up. So your compact cranks, your big cassette, your new derailleur if required for long cage operation to support bigger gears. You know, fresh tape, you know, all that sort of stuff. You really should have that done months before the ride event, and then a few weeks before the event you should take your bike into the bike shop, get your new tyres put on, and just get your gears tuned and make sure your brakes are working. And it should be done like, you know, a couple of weeks, because why leave it till the last minute? And going down the Falls Descent, which was the first part of the day, there are already people with punctures and flats, and look, you know, I think a lot of those could have been prevented. So and you don't want to train and go out with a mechanical. Like, if you lose 30 minutes, that could be your ride, you know. There goes your 13-hour cutoff. So I think it's really important to have your bike sorted out, and yeah, just dialed in, right? Like, you know, the amount of money it costs you to get to Falls Creek, buy the ticket, buy your accommodation, you know, spending a couple $100 to get your bike dialed in by a good mechanic, you know, it's not really rocket science. And I guess for next year, I also had some thoughts there about, or the next event that I do. Maybe it could be another Peaks Challenge series event, or maybe it'll be Falls next year. But I think next year I will definitely be peeing in the bushes after or before an official stop. I think I lost probably, you know, 15 minutes, 20 minutes through the day just waiting in line at the bathroom. So I think, you know, peeing by the side of the road is probably not a big deal. You're giving the nitrogen back to the plants, so you're really recycling. That's the best form of recycling. So pee before the stops. I think I'll use the rest stops pretty sparingly. I think the valet bags, I'll probably just have, I might try and go for only a 2-stop strategy, where probably skip the first valet service and just pack extra dates to get past that point to Hotham, and use only the rest stops to just get the water on board and then quickly get through. So I think there are people taking a lot of time. I'll probably be a little bit more self-sufficient, so not relying on the sunscreen provided there. A few of the rest stops, the sunscreen had already been run out, and you sort of wait in line and then it's all finished. So that was a little bit disappointing, but you know, look, it's not their fault, so you know, shit happens. So you need to be self-sufficient. So yeah, I think just with that, I'll probably save a bit. One of my riding partners was saying that, you know, I was pissing a bit too much because I was overhydrated. I'm not sure if I could have finished in the time I did and produced the watts that I needed to get over those hills. So look, you know, you need to think about that as well. I choose not to be dehydrated, so I don't want to be a shit cunt and be a dehydrated motherfucker and not be able to finish the ride. So it's a two-way street. So yeah, so they're just my thoughts on preparing and completing Peaks Challenge. I think anyone can do it. I think you need to put the energy into preparation. You need to be fit. You can't muck around. I think if you can complete around the bay 210, 250, it's a great baseline to start your Peaks Challenge campaign. I think you know, the keys are get the food in, get the training in, get the water in, and you know, just pace yourself. get your bike dialed in, no mechanicals by the side of the road, and I think you know everyone should be able to complete within the 13 hours. So anyway, I had a great time. Kudos to Bicycle Victoria. I thought they provided such a great event. It was really well organised. The staff were just amazing, and I think I'll definitely be doing another Peaks series ride. I think, yeah, I just had a great time. It was so emotional. I think that was, I think the emotion crossing the line was probably one of the, it was just the most amazing feeling crossing the line, pushing your body to the limit, and you know, the feeling of joy and just the adrenaline in your body. It was just the best high I've ever experienced. It was fantastic. And I highly recommend it because it just gave me such a sense of achievement to finish the ride, and I felt very proud, and I still do feel proud. So it's just, I just want to share this and hopefully encourage other people to get out there and, you know, maybe after a year or two of riding, give this sort of event a crack. Anyway, that's all from me. I'm a little bit hungover. I've got a car park race, the CPC car park ride coming up today, so at 5 o'clock, so wish me luck. Thanks guys.